Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Lesser Known But Awesome Heroes. And today, I'm going to be talking about an obscure character and one that I think is actually kind of cool. Not just in appearance, but one that I would say is pretty much on the same level of technology and awesomeness as, say, Iron Man, War Machine, and many armor-clad superheroes. That's right, today I'll be talking about the extraterrestrial armored superhero known as... Bleh, had a lump in my throat there. The hero known as Darkhawk. So let's get underway. Darkhawk actually debuted in the first issue of his own self-titled miniseries in March of 1991. And he was created by writer and, at that time, Marvel editor-in-chief editor-in-chief, just had to double check to make sure that I got that right, Tom DeFalco, and artist Mike Manley. And his name is Christopher Chris Powell, and his team affiliations is the Loners, the New Warriors, Project Pegasus, the Secret Defenders, and the West Coast Avengers. And some of the abilities that Chris has is Energy Blasts, Energy Shield, Flight, Night Vision, Claw Cable, Accelerated Healing Factor, and Super Strength. But allow me to, as I always try to do with these videos, exemplate his powers even more. Okay, the Darkhawk armored body itself has enhanced physical attributes, including strength, agility, reflexes, and is powered by an extraterrestrial amulet. The retractable glider wings that are underneath his arms allow him to glide on air currents. He can also fly, depending on the amount of wind and speed that he travels on. He can fly from New York to California in a matter of hours. Major injuries to the Darkhawk armored body can be repaired by Chris switching back to his normal form. His human form. And the Darkhawk body actually teleports back to the holding space on the Darkhawk ship that is in the null space, where it is almost repaired instantly. However, this was back during the time when Darkhawk and Chris were actually two separate beings. In the current continuity, since it is no longer separate from Chris, but is rather a merged entity of him, that they're both, two beings in one, it does not teleport into null space when it's not in use, so it's questionable whether it can repair as quickly as it once could. As Darkhawk, Chris can also project energy from the amulet on his chest as a focal point, i.e. similar to Iron Man or War Machine's Unibeam. And it can shoot either concussive force blasts or as a circular energy shield. Chris refers to these force blasts as dark force blasts, at least until he encountered the actual dark force dimension in New Warriors. He also has telescopic and infrared vision, and a grappling hook on his right arm that is in the shape of a talon-like claw. In his human form, he has no superhuman abilities, although he has taken some kendo and karate classes. And for a time, when he had upgraded to a new body design, it even greatly enhanced his powers, and the amulet could project force bubbles in various shapes. And he could combine his force blasts and force fields into a giant hawk-shaped construct around his body. He could fire heat blasts from his eyes, be healed by generating an energy pod around his body, and had a single extendable claw on each wrist. He could also mentally communicate with the Darkhawk ship and could teleport weapons from the ship when he was on Earth. At one point, he was outfitted with additional body armor on top of his android body. However, in that body, he was separate from Chris, but maintained Chris's memories, and the two would later be merged into one being in the final issue of the Darkhawk miniseries. And that Chris would turn into Darkhawk on command. and the android body no longer existed, and they were pretty much one. Which I don't know why they duplicated that for this, but whatever. And at some point after the cancellation of the miniseries, Darkhawk reverted to his original form under unrevealed circumstances, though he can still summon his second armored form. His appearance in War of Kings is somewhat more reminiscent of his second costume, and he demonstrates a heretofore unrealized ability to configure the armor into a second form equipped with heavier artillery and with bulkier body armor. Okay, so now let's actually get into the origins of Darkhawk, shall we? Okay, Christopher Powell was born in Queens, New York. While witnessing his father, a policeman, accept a bribe from a crime boss at an abandoned amusement park, teenage Chris discovers a mysterious amulet. This amulet allowed him to switch places with a powerful android that his mind controlled. Chris vowed to use the amulet as an edge against crime. In his role, he worked with other superheroes and battled a number of costumed villains. He soon encountered his first supervillain, which was the Hobgoblin, and he battled alongside Spider-Man. He next fought Savage Steel and then Portal. He next battled the UFOs alongside Captain America. And he would then battle the villain Lodestone, who attempted to remove his amulet. He battled Savage Steel again, this time alongside Frank Castle, the Punisher. Darkhawk would battle the Cyborg Midnight, Thunderball, and the Secret Empire alongside the Punisher, Spider-Man, Night Thrasher, Richard Rider Nova, and Moon Knight. And Chris would also then battle the assassins from the Foreigners 1400 Club. He then would battle Tombstone, who successfully actually removed the amulet from his chest. Occasionally, Chris would team and work with the New Warriors, and was a provisional member of the West Coast Avengers. And then he would also battle a number of costume villains, including the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. Powell would then discover that the armor was stored and repaired among a starship in a dimension called null space. When he used the amulet to access the armor, his human body switched places with the armor. The Darkhawk, the Darkhawk, there we go, the Darkhawk amulet and armor were one of several commissioned by an alien crime lord called Dargan Bokk, B-O-K-K. The scientist who created the technology eventually used it to assault Bokk. After his defeat, the Darkhawk amulet was sent to Earth for safekeeping. However, the events of the recent War of Kings Ascension storyline cast doubts about how much of this, even the existence of Bokk himself, was real. Later, Powell and Darkhawk were split into two separate beings, each with Powell's memories. The Darkhawk body was then transformed into a new shape when it accidentally downloaded data from the spaceship, later re-emerging so that Powell could change back and forth between the two without teleporting to null space. And here we go. Excelsior or Loners. I have no idea why they titled it like that, but anyway, Powell later joined a group of former teenage superheroes who were struggling with their current lot in life called the Loners, formerly known as Excalibur. There we go. Or Excelsior, however you want to pronounce it. I'll just put Loners. But members of this group included Phil Urich, a former Green Goblin, Turbo from the New Warriors, Lightspeed from Power Pack, and Ricochet from the Slingers. The group was hired by a mysterious benefactor, later revealed to be former Avengers sidekick and Captain Marvel and Hulk partner Rick Jones, to track down the runaways in L.A. Powell would then display trouble controlling his anger in his Darkhawk persona, leading to a short skirmish with Turbo. Dismayed with himself, Powell admits to his teammates that he has suffered a nervous breakdown. Pal decided to never turn into Darkhawk again, but this decision did not last long, as shortly thereafter the group battled the nefarious Avengers villain, Ultron. Okay, I have to admit, I'm liking reading this character history so far, so sorry if I sound like I'm just completely amazed. It's my first time reading through this, because I didn't read ahead of time like I always do with these videos. But anyway, I'm not going to bore you guys with that. But Darkhawk delivered the final blow using a Dark Force blast at point-blank range to blow Ultron to bits. Following the battle and the revelation of Jones's involvement, the loners opted to remain together and act more as a traditional superhero team. They would eventually change their minds about being superheroes and instead became a superhuman support group due to the events of the superhuman Civil War, rendering moot their original purpose to dissuade and or help young superheroes cope with their powers of superhuman identities, as this role was now officially fulfilled by the U.S. government. Though their new group mission was also fulfilled by the U.S. government. However, a new addition to the team, Maddie Franklin, convinces Pal to use his powers in order to help her take down the MGH dealers that moved to LA. Pal inconsistently displays his rage issues during this time, more acting as a peacemaker between Maddie and Ricochet after the three team up to battle crime. Secret Invasion. Deciding to register with the government, Darkhawk is assigned to the position of security chief at Project Pegasus during the Skrull invasion. He teams up with his old teammate Nova for 2 issues of that character's own title, but it is seen in the but is also seen in the background of several issues thereafter. War of Kings. Darkhawk is involved in the War of Kings event in the 4-issue series that was written by Dan Abnett and Andy Lanning, called War of Kings Ascension. With the Loners series ending with low sales and unlikely to be followed with a sequel series writer C.B. I'm just going to spell his name out. Cebulski was assigned to write a 2-issue War of Kings Darkhawk series, with Abnett and Lanning co-scripting the 2nd issue to ensure it tied into their own Ascension series. A second Darkhawk armor, there we go. Oh, excuse me. Appears near the Powell family home, and the unknown occupant of the armor forces Powell to transform to his own armored form shortly before the explosion rocks the immediate area. Powell's family survives the blast, but his mother is critically injured. The new Darkhawk introduces himself as Talon and claims to be part of the Fraternity of Raptors, an order created by the Curators of History and the Custodians of the Future, of which he and Pal are the last 2 members. He also explains that Pal's anger issues are a direct result of the amulet not being designed to work with humans. Talon offers to assist Pal with the amulet, and after some deliberation he opts to do so. The 2 then retreat to the negative zone. The story picks up in War of Kings Ascension, with Pal and Talon are fighting through a group of I'm just going to pronounce it. Oh, wait, no. They're battling the group of Annihilus clones that were actually part of Annihilus's army from the Annihilation Wave. That did actually survive, where Talon's brutal tactics horrify Powell. Later, Powell reveals that he wanted to be just like his friend Richard Rider, Nova. Talon explains to him that the Nova Corps are nothing compared to the Fraternity of Raptors, referring to themselves as Architects of Fate. Eventually, after being tricked by Talon into fighting just as deadly, Powell manages to connect to the data song of the Null Source, which gives him visions of the true past of the fraternity. A history of kidnappings and assassinations, which led Powell to the conclusion that the fraternity are the bad guys. At this point, Talon attacks him, purging Pal's consciousness from the armor, which manifests a new persona, Razor. Talon and Razor then recover the cosmic control rod, and Talon stopped briefly to plant a suggestion in Nihilus' head, and then proceeded onward. Pal's personality is revealed not to be wholly destroyed yet, but rather, and a vision of his father tells him that much of what he believed about the armor was false. The prior history, even Evil Hawk himself, was a lie made up by his own mind. The other armor, a second configuration that took control to cover earlier anger issues. Horrified, Pal's psyche breaks free of the prison it was locked in, only for Pal to find himself on a giant tree adorned with thousands of amulets like his own, where he encounters gargoyle-like creatures that urge him to return to the one from which he has just emerged from. Meanwhile, in the negative zone, Razor and Talon offer Blastar the cosmic control rod in exchange for his assistance, influencing the outcome of the War of Kings. Pal encounters a Skrull on the tree mentioned earlier, who has a relationship with Talon much as Razor has with him. However, the Skrull also finds that humanity, as a newer race, cannot be wholly accounted for or controlled by the Raptors, and that Pal's own outbursts of rage have been growing pains in his own control. With this understanding, Pal is able to reassess control over the Darkhawk armor, but not before Razor shoots several Shintari and kills Lalandra. Pal later confronts Talon, and while he is able to force the other Raptor to release the Skrull temporarily, he is quick to reassess control again. The Skrull commits suicide to prevent Talon from manifesting, but not before he charges Pal with destroying the rest of the Raptor amulets before they can bring down the Fraternity of Raptor. Destroying the rest of the Raptor amulets before they can bring the Fraternity of Raptors back. There we go. And now, the Realm of Kings. Okay, the Shintari Emporium declares Darkhawk the galaxy's most wanted, making Pal an intergalactic fugitive. His old friend Nova, not willing to believe Pal could be a murderer, tracks him to the planet Shard, which is in danger of falling into a rift in space known as the Fault. Nova offers to help Pal clear his name, but they are interrupted by an attacking biomass from the Fault, and by the awakening of another Raptor named Gyre, Gyre. All three are trapped on the planet as it is disintegrated by the Fault. Darkhawk finds himself saved alongside Nova, but by Nova's old enemy, the Sphinx, who seems unaware of Darkhawk's presence. Together, the two heroes join past versions of Reed Richards, Black Bolt, and Namorita in helping the Sphinx combat his younger self. The young Sphinx draws his own warriors, including who I just mentioned, Gyre, into battle, and Darkhawk faces and defeats him in singles combat, exorcising him from the Kree archaeologist he had possessed. During the fight, he reveals that many more Raptors are reawakening. Ultimately, the Elder Sphinx defeats his counterpart and mentally controls Darkhawk into giving him his younger self's K-Stone, K-A, and then Stone. Nevertheless, the heroes are able to defeat the double-powered Sphinx and return to their proper places in time, except Namorita, who was pulled into Darkhawk and Nova's time. And Darkhawk returns to Earth and Project Pegasus to help Nova fight the evil Quasar from the Cancerverse on the other side of the Fault. The evil Quasar damages Darkhawk so badly that his suit shuts down, leaving him alive but unable to accompany Nova as he goes to warn the galaxy about the threat posed by the Fault. Nova leaves Darkhawk in the care of the Pegasus medical team. And that, guys, is it for Darkhawk. I keep wanting to call him Dark Horse. I keep wanting to say Blackhawk. It's kind of very hard when like you got like two names. It's kind of hard to really focus when you got like a name that you can easily mess up like that. But I like this character, guys. I think Darkhawk is actually a really interesting and kind of cool character. I mean, even just looking at this picture here, he's got a cool design. And I think, and he's certainly, and I certainly think that if that, and I certainly feel that if Marvel really pushes him like they've done with Richard Rider, I think that honestly, you know, Chris Powell could be one of like Marvel's like lower B to like top C list, tiered, heroes in the Marvel universe. But as always, guys, that is it. He may be lesser known, but just like many others, as I've always said, he is awesome. And with that, guys, we move on to the next one. So, rate, comment, subscribe, take care, yada yada yada, and I'm out.